Welcome to another episode of Technology for Independence with Christopher Cooley. Today, Christopher is going to be interviewing Tim Hunt. Tim is an educator with the Wurtland School System, and he's going to be talking about his community involvement working with multiple disabilities. Stay tuned. Welcome back to another episode of Technology for Independence with Christopher Cooley. Christopher Cooley is going to be interviewing Tim Hunt. He's an educator with the Wurtland Preschool System, in which he works with a variety of different community individuals with multiple disabilities. Chris, it's always a pleasure talking with you.
It's a pleasure to be here once again. Yes, I met Tim Hunt when he worked at the Snyder County Board of Disabilities. He was the first person that helped me gain more of my independence and be independent on my own when I moved back to Portsmouth, Ohio. And I know that Tim had moved on as a teacher in the school district. And I just wanted to bring him up and talk a little bit about, his story and tell us what's been going on with him. Tim?
Well, hello. So my story is, yes, I I'm a teacher now. I started this journey as working with adults and children with special needs when I worked for the Scioto County Board of DD. I was a service coordinator at the time, and that's where I met Chris, and we worked together on a lot of things. Remote technology was one of those specific things, and then just helping him with daily living things. I moved on from there to help children that were from birth to age 3 in their homes and help their families access community resources and therapy services in their home. And from there, I decided to further my education and get a master's degree in early childhood education and then special education. So now I use those skills that I had working in our community with our school and parents and the children in my classroom.
Now, you have a disability yourself, is that correct?
That is correct. So I have a rare vision impairment called aniridia. Taking out the medical from that means I have no iris in my eye. So if you look at my eyes, there's no color. So on my driver's license, it says my eyes are black. So with that visual condition, I am very nearsighted. My vision is actually 20/200, and that's with correction. I actually wear contacts every day that give me that correction.
You've had this all your life, is this correct?
Yes. So aniridia comes from a genetic mutation, and mine is what's called sporadic. So no one else in my family has this. It came from birth, and the gene mutated, and here I am.
So how did you convince your mom and dad, your parents, that there was a problem with your eyesight, or since it was at birth, perhaps you didn't realize it could be corrected? I'm not sure.
When I was born, there were doctors in our local area. They noticed it pretty soon after birth, and these doctors said that I would never see. I could maybe see shadows, but that was about it. So then my family didn't take that very well. So we went to Nationwide Children's Hospital in Columbus, Ohio, and from there I had a couple different surgeries, and they were able to correct some of the vision. They clipped some muscles that needed to work better. And from there, I have the vision that I have today.
So how do you get back and forth to work if you're legally blind? and you go from Ohio to Kentucky.
When I was younger, I lived in the state of Kentucky, and in the state of Kentucky, they have a program called the Bioptic Driving Program. And with that program, I had specialized training. I had to have, I think it's 30 hours of behind the wheel training with a driving instructor that specialized in helping people that have vision impairment. And from there, I had to do that 30 hours of training. So I say I can drive pretty well because I had to learn how to parallel park in Louisville right beside the college. So so from that, I had a license through that bioptic program. It's a pair of glasses that I wear that have a scope on them. It looks like a monocular. It's just attached to the glasses. And with that, I can drive. It gives me 20 over, I think it's 60 vision. And then each year I have to have a eye exam with a specialist that specializes in that kind of driving exam.
So that people look at you and see you driving, but when you pull out your cane and it's like, what am I seeing right now? What is your reaction and you think about other than just deeds that happen?
I do get some strange looks at times. Some of the time, if I'm going to a place that I'm very familiar with, I may not use my white cane, like here at the school, places like that. So most people may not even may not even notice the vision impairment until I'm trying to look at something really close or things like that. But when I'm out in the community and I would do that or need assistance from an adult, like to get up curbs and things like that, then I get these very strange looks.
So how does the kids at your school, do they ask a lot of questions? How did they react to your vision loss?
So the beauty of working with preschool students is they don't really notice. They don't really care. And for the most part, using things that I have in my daily life, technologies, things like that, I can pretty much function. Like I said, here at the school, sometimes people don't even know unless I divulge that information that I'm legally blind. So I can use things just like having my cell phone with me at all times. I can enlarge things and having a computer monitor that makes things larger. I have handheld magnifiers that I just keep in my desk, and if I need them for specific things, they're there. So honestly, people may not know my disability is more of a hidden one until you really look at me, I guess.
So when you work with the kids, what kind of disabilities do you see prevalent at the school?
So our preschool program and throughout the state of Kentucky, it's all inclusive. So basically, we get any disability, any functioning level. So I have students that are between the ages of 3 and 5. They can be typically developing, so they could be a 5-year-old that's preparing for kindergarten and learning how to write their name, learning letters, numbers, to I have students with autism, students with cerebral palsy, students, I have one with Fragile X syndrome, so it kind of looks like autism, has some different things with it there. So just a rainbow of diversity.
And I would imagine that in working with those students, there's a certain amount of emotions that you have to deal with that other children who don't have major disabilities don't understand.
Some of those students that have disabilities are more free to explore and do things that some of the other students need to be learning boundaries for. For instance, as a typically developing 5-year-old, they need to be able to show me they can sit in a chair and engage with the teacher to prepare for kindergarten. But I have a 3-year-old with autism that needs to be able to move instead of sitting constantly. So they're allowed to move around the classroom. So then you have students that especially at that age level, say, well, this person doesn't have to do what I have to do. So why can't I do what they do? But in my classroom, what we say is some of my students, if that have disabilities, there are special friends, which doesn't mean anything. Like, I would consider all of my students special in that way, and I make sure they know that, but they know that they learn differently. So these friends learn differently.
I know that you're married. So how, does your wife tend to think, "Oh, I'll do that for you. I'll be able to do that better for you. Let me do it." So in your relationship and your marriage, how do you handle that kind of stuff? I know it happened.
Well, it can happen. So my wife and I have been together for it'll be 6 years in April, and at this point, she says that she forgets sometimes. She says that she forgets that I have a vision impairment. We can be going down the road, and she'll point all the way in the distance out in the field somewhere and say, "Hey, look at that! That's a pretty house." And I'll say, "Okay, but I can't see it." I love her for that because that shows me that I'm no different than anyone else, and she just wants to show me something that she thinks is beautiful. So I like that. I feel like sometimes I don't rely on her as much as I could, and then other times maybe I do too much. I don't. I think maybe I've heard from her that I'm one of her other kids. So
Is she a teacher also?
she is. She has the best job in the world. She's a stay-at-home mom.
Oh, okay. How many
Uh,
children do you have?
so my wife and I are actually foster parents. So we have a whole range of kids. Currently, we have 4 kids. They're 2, 3, 5, and 5 currently.
That's awesome to know that agencies can trust you, with your vision impairment or and other disabilities. Allow you guys to have, those kids and love them and be able to, show them like you do in your classroom, that, they are loved and they are special in our heart. I've seen photos of your kids and they're pretty awesome, and how you and your wife work with them is so awesome.
Crystal and I, we're not we're considered a treatment foster home, and that's because with my experience with children and her experience, she actually worked with Sauter County Board of DD as well. She was a teacher's assistant for kids with multiple disabilities. And because of all of that extra training and love that we have, we are considered a therapeutic home. So we can have kids not only that are typically developing, but we can have kids that have multiple disabilities.
Now, in your home, do you happen to have what is called a smart home, where it's filled with different items of technology?
My home is smarter than I am, so yes. We have Alexa that can do just about anything for me. It can turn on the lights, it can turn on heaters. So, and I like heaters and fans that are around the house, things that I may not be able to see, like the buttons to know where the on button is or how to control different functions. I can just use my voice and say, "Alexa, can you turn that on and do what I want you to do?" So that's a great tool to have.
So what other tools do you use?
This right here, my cell phone would be one, which everybody has a cell phone, but not everyone knows that your cell phone can, it has a magnifier, and mine, I just tap a button on the side and it pops up. And so at home, when it's my turn to cook, I can use it to read labels, like the back of a label to find directions. At school, I can use it for things like doing paperwork most paperwork here at school is not going to be accessible for me in a way of its regular print. So I have to enlarge it using that. I also have handheld magnifiers that they're electronic. So you kind of take a picture and then you can zoom it in, and it has lights so you can make it brighter. I use a lot with my phone to do that too, the flashlight and the magnifier. I have on my computer right now, I only see half of my screen, and that's simply because I'm using a magnifier that's built into the Windows operating system. So I can see what I need to see at the time, but it enlarges it to the size I need. So
Do you have a service animal?
no.
Is it your choice, or you don't feel you need one?
I don't think that's something I currently need.
And so what other devices do you have at home that protect you? Like, for instance, when it's your turn to cook, what are some aids that you found to be really helpful?
Using that same Alexa, I have things that, like, if the smoke detector comes off, it'll announce it and tell me that it's going off. um, and it's a very low tech thing, but I have little stickers that go on. They're tactile stickers that would go on appliances. So like when using a stove, I'm not going to be able to see the knobs on the back of it. So there's a little sticker. I think mine are orange, but it's a little sticker that I can look at and touch it to know, I'm turning the stove to high, I'm turning it to medium, I'm turning it to low. And the same for like our washing machine, our dryer has those, so that, and it's honestly easier for me, so I don't even have to look at it. I just know I turn the knob and I know where I need it, and it's ready to go.
And how about a microwave? Do you need anything that helps with the microwave?
So my microwave would be, it kind of has, we found one that has kind of larger buttons on it, so I don't really have that many. I don't have much of a need for something larger for that. And honestly, when you use something for so long and you're so used to being visually impaired, you kind of memorize everything. So a lot of my life is memorizing things and just knowing where they are.
I know I use Alexa for my microwave. I could tell her to turn it on for 3 minutes. I could tell her to turn it off. And they do also come out with the Alexa, the microwaves that are connected with Alexa. They have braille stickers you could put on instead of having all those bumps that can be confusing on a microwave. But I do use the bump stickers that you were talking about on my stove. That helped me a lot.
When you travel to larger cities, do you use public transportation?
Not typically. I don't do a ton of traveling. And when I do, honestly, at this point, when we go to large cities, my wife will drive. So she's my public transportation.
So when you're in larger cities, etc., and you're wearing your eyeglasses that have the telescopic lenses, how do people treat you?
There are some strange looks that come. Some people, the people that are more bold and will come up to you and ask you questions, will ask like, what is it? And typically I don't get a negative response from it. I get well, that's really cool. I even once got well, I want some of that.
How does that make you feel when people come up to you and acknowledge the fact that you're wearing something special?
I've lived with that for 33 years. People thinking that I'm different, that when I was in high school, I had like this whole cart full of assistive technology that I would carry around to each class, and I would be the cool person that they would watch and they would look at, and they would like all the cool stuff that I had. And nowadays, I would prefer people to ask me questions. I know like some people would just kind of stare at you from across the room, but I would prefer people to ask me questions. Simply, I can spread awareness that way. My condition is very rare in my area. So my eye doctors that I see locally, I'm the only person that has this condition. So being able to tell people, this actually exists, this is what it is it's a fun thing to do because I get to spread that awareness.
But you do share a common disability, that being limited eyesight. Coming up to an individual who has a profound disability, it's a little fearful that we're insulting individuals.
Right. It can be, and I know, like, going back to being a teacher, I have a student who has cerebral palsy, so he utilizes a wheelchair, and I have students that can be fearful of, because that's not something we see on a typical day. But then I can use my skills as someone who can communicate. I can give them the ability to understand what's going on. I can reduce that fear. So my hope is, as a teacher and teaching students on all those levels, that when they become an adult, they don't feel fearful in asking those questions. Some they may already know from the experience they've had with me, and others they know it's okay to ask questions, and they know it's okay to approach those people and treat them as if they're just another person.
Talking about traveling, I know that I use landmarks a lot, and everyone's like, "Wow, I thought you couldn't see anything." Well, I'm legally blind. I can see landmarks, and I use landmarks until they either tear them down, and so I have to figure out another landmark. And so a lot of people like, "How did you know we were here?" Well, that landmark over there, like a gas station, grocery store, something that sticks out bright enough for me to see it. What about you, Tim? Do you do that? Use landmark?
So specifically as someone that can drive, I know my community pretty well. And when I drive, I look for those same landmarks. I know, like, if I'm going to a certain place, I know what to look for. For instance, like if I'm going to Walmart, I have it memorized to the point I know how many lights I go through before I get to a Walmart or whatever. As a person who, if someone comes up to me and says, well, can you give me directions to this place? Do you know where this place is? A lot of times I'm not going to say, well, you need to go to this street and do this. I'm going to say, well, you need to go down to this business or this home that has this color or something like that. And sometimes that can be helpful for people, and sometimes they don't do directions like that.
You grew up, it sounds like a very supportive family. Do you find the children that you work with, their families are equally supportive?
So I feel like, so sometimes a student with special needs, they're just now getting diagnosis of what their disability may be at the time that they come to me. So some families are a little hesitant in the sense of they're almost grieving the process of knowing that their child has autism, or they've come to school thinking they're right on target developmentally, and I do my screenings and tell them that maybe they need some speech therapy, or maybe they need those outside resources that we can help them obtain. But I would say that my families are pretty receptive, especially since I can pull in that knowledge of working with a lot of different people with disabilities, also having a disability myself. I think families are receptive when people can have that knowledge. And then I bring in the knowledge of being a parent with special needs, having special needs children in my classroom. So there's sometimes that we'll go on like a home visit and we'll be talking to a parent, and I'll turn on my special needs parent voice and use all the lingo that they know and they're immersed in, talking to doctors and things like that. So I feel like they're more accepting of me and accepting of what's going on because I can come into their world.
What are some bits of wisdom you'd like to share to the listening audience?
Never give up. That's what I tell my students, and I tell them, we have a phrase in our classroom that they'll say can't, and I'll tell them that we don't say can't, we say I'll try. When those doctors gave my family the news that I would have this vision impairment and wouldn't be able to see anything, would have to go to a specialized school, and would need help throughout my life, I took that as a challenge, honestly. And I had to show them that I could do whatever I wanted to do. And I want everyone else to know that they can too. So I went from those doctors saying that I can't do anything, specialized school, would need help throughout my life, to I am 33, have a beautiful wife, a family of 4. I can drive, and I'm going to have 2 master's degrees soon. So.
Oh, fantastic.
For the kids in your school that may watch this video later, what would you say to them? That maybe, the kids that don't have disability, what's a couple of things you would say to them?
I would say, remember to be kind. Remember to ask questions if you're curious, and remember that we are all equal.
You know, Chris, it really sounds like you had a good mentor when he was assisting you.
I sure did. When I moved back, I was scared to live on my own again. I was living with my mom and I wanted to get back out on my own. And we found a landlord that said yes, and gave me a chance because I always want to say to the landlord, if you give me a chance, I can show you I can. And so Tim came in and showed me some other remote support and other things. And I was able to get in my house and lived here for I think 5 years now. I had to say that Tim had a big part in that.
I think that's great. Hey, we're talking with Chris Cooley, Tim Hunt, Technology for Independence. Tim Hunt is a educator with the Wurtland Preschool System. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Tim.